Okay, good morning students, welcome back. Today we shall be doing the topic faults and its types from the chapter Endogenous processes and associated landforms. Alright, and this is the 5th chapter in geography. Now, we have done till folds in the previous classes, and I told you what is the meaning of folding, what causes folding, and the different types of folding. Now today we shall be doing what do you mean by faults, what is fault, alright, and the different types of faults. Now it is in it starts from page 85 and it continues in page 86. Alright, now the first thing that we will be doing is what do you mean by faulting. Alright, it is just the opposite of folding, and it is also just the opposite. Now see, you know that compression, when the force is acting on a single point from both the direction, when forces are acting on a single point from opposite direction, because the push is happening from different direction, of what a fold is caused. All right, a fold is caused or a compression is caused. Now faulting is just the opposite. Now a faulting is caused by tension. Right? A tension means when from a single point the force is acting away from the point. All right, this causes breakage on the surface of the earth or the earth's crust. All right, so when the force is acting, that means the land mass is moving away from each other. Now because of the force which is moving away from each other, a crack is caused. A crack is caused and there is a slight separation on the surface of the crust. Now this is known as faulting, and faulting is caused by tension. Alright, so now if you look at the definition, what do you mean by faults? It gives compression results in folding and tension results in faulting. Alright, so what do you mean by fault? A fault is a crack which is caused on the surface of the earth when two or more forces act from a point towards the different directions. This is known as faulting. Now, okay, so we have to start with the types of faults. Now before I start with the types of fault, I am going to tell you what is there's a terminology. First is what is fault. The second one is what do you mean by fault plane. Alright, now fault plane. First one is fault. Number 2 is fault plane, and number 3 is fault scrap. Alright, now what do you mean by fault? You already know what is the meaning of fault. Now what do you mean by fault plane? Fault plane, you may get a question, describe or define fault plane with the help of a diagram. Now a fault plane is the point or the plane on the earth's surface where the tension or the crack occurs. Alright, so it is the plane or it is the point on which the tension or the fault occurs. This is known as the fault plane. Now suppose there are different types of faults, but before that I'll tell you what is the meaning of fault scrap. Now suppose this is a piece of land. Okay, now because of a tension, a crack or a fault occurs. This part of the land moves upwards and this part of the land remains as it is. So there is an elevation. All right, so this part of the land, because of the crack, it moves upwards. So when there is a crack, a part of the land moves upwards, and if you look at this part, a part of the surface is exposed. All right, a part of the surface, because of the tension, when one part of the land moves upwards, a part of the land is exposed. All right, so this part of the surface which is exposed, or this part of the crack which is exposed, is known as the fault scrap. All right, so I'll just do a short recap. What do you mean by faults? A fault is that point on the surface of the earth where tension is caused, and because of the tension a fault occurs or a crack occurs, right? So that is known as fault. Now, under faults you have to learn what is fault plane and what is fault scrap. What do you mean by fault plane? Okay, now the process is known as faulting, but the point or the plane or the exact point where the crack occurs is known as the fault plane. Fault scrap is when there is tension, when there is crack, a part of the land gets elevated. A part of the land gets elevated and the remaining remains as it is. Alright, now this part of the land which is exposed after the crack is known as the fault scrap. Alright, okay, these are easy. Now we shall be doing the different types of faults. Alright, now we shall be doing the different types of fault. Now there are three main types of fault. The first one is the normal fault. Now under normal fault, this is the first one. This is the first one, which is the normal fault. So please look at the diagram properly. It's also there in your book. It is in page number 86. All right. Now in this type of fault, the force is acting on the opposite direction. So what happens is, a part of the land remains as it is. All right, most part of the land remains as it is, but there is a part of the land which is elevated. All right, so this is known as the normal fault. This part is known as the normal fault, and these type of normal faults are rare. It is extremely rare. So if you look at page number 86, it is given. So a part of the land is moving away, and the directions that the force is acting on, or the direction that the tension is acting on, is also separate. Now when the force is acting separately, a part of the land gets elevated and it moves away. That is, you can see it is inclined away from the point, and here also this is moving this side. So this moves this side and the other moves towards the east or towards the right side. So because of this, a kind of fault occurs, and this fault is known as the normal fault. Okay, now second one we shall be doing is the reverse fault. Reverse fault. Now reverse, the word itself means it goes in the opposite direction. All right, now reverse fault, not in the opposite direction, but the forces that is acting. See, one type of force is acting towards the right side, and the other kind of force is acting towards the left side. Now because of this reverse fault, one is towards the right, one is towards the left. So because of the reverse kind of fault, what happens is, see, the first one you saw that the land was moving away. You can see it is inclined away from the point. Now here in the second one, if you look at the cracks properly, okay, the part of the elevated land. The part of the elevated land comes upwards or comes on top of the lower land. Alright, so elevation, now this part of the land has moved up and it has not moved away but it has come towards. Now this type, see, you know that falls are caused by tension, but this type of falls is caused by compression. Now you know that compression, a kind of force which acts as compression force, means it moves towards each other and it causes folding. All right, when compression forces moves towards each other, that means it causes folding. But in this type, or in this scenario, in this case, you can see that this force is moving here towards the right side and this force is moving towards the left side. So because of the force, what happens is a part of the land gets elevated and then it somewhat overlaps. That means it is going on top of the land. One part is going on top of the other part. Now this type of fault is known as the reverse fault. Okay, now the third one that we will be doing is the thrust fault. Okay, now here it is a kind of thrust folding. So if you look at the previous one that we've already done, this is a kind of a fault. Here also the forces are moving in the opposite direction. I'll explain to you how this is caused. Alright? Okay. Now, what happens is that, see, you know that the surface of the earth is made up of different layers of soil, different layers of stones and rocks. Alright? Now, what happens is, it's like if this is the different surfaces. If this is the different surfaces, and when force is acting towards each other, when force is acting towards each other, what happens is there is a slight crack. All right, somewhere here there is a slight crack, and this part of the land moves on top, and this part, the entire thing, it bends, it starts bending. So it's like this. Suppose these are the different layers. The lower part goes down and the upper part goes up. That means you can see that a fold is created here. You can see a fold is created. The lower part comes down, the upper part goes here, and it's kind of an S. So this part, you can see that the folding is, or the fault is occurring at this part. All right. So now you may be thinking why there are different kind of faults. Why are there different kinds of faults? Now the first reason is because the force acting, all right, the force acting on different parts of the earth is different. Some forces are pulling, some forces are pushing. All right, now this push and pull, okay, some forces are moving upwards and some forces are moving down. So we've already done the different types of forces. Some are vertical forces which moves up and down, some are horizontal forces which moves the surface of the earth right and left. All right, now because of the different types of forces and the intensity of force also, okay, how high is the intensity, or what is the level of intensity? All right, the intensity of forces of the earth that is acting on the surface of the earth is also different. So that is why there is the different types of folding and faulting. Now we have the last one, which is known as the step fault. Now by the name itself, you can step fault. So Now, like I said, just because forces are acting on the surface of the earth, it does not mean that there is only one fault or there is only one fault plane. All right. Now, because if this is the surface of the earth and these are the different layers, and these are the different layers. Now, because the earth is stretched over a vast area, the earth is also made up of different types of layers, and like I said, the forces acting on the earth is also different. So sometimes because of tension over a large area, the number of falls occurring may also be more. Now remember the fan folding. So some parts of the land, it moves up, some parts move down. So a kind of a step is formed. Alright. So this is the last type of fault. That means this is the fourth one. This is the last one. Alright. So let's do a short recap of what we have done today. The first thing that we did is, what do you mean by faulting, or what is a fault? A fault is that part on the surface of the earth where tension is caused. Now when tension causes, a crack is caused or a crack is formed and it causes faulting. And we did the different types of faulting. So the first one that we did is the regular kind of fault, which is rarely seen on the surface of the earth. Then the second one that we did is the reverse fault. That means the surface of the earth is overlapping. That part of the surface which moves upwards is overlapping on the surface. The third one is the thrust. That means a bend is caused. Alright. Then the last one, that is the fourth one, is the step fault. Alright. Thank you.